Okay. Oh well, I'll live with it.
And we are live. And I'd like to say thank you for joining us and welcome to this first Eve Guardian live stream interview. And today we have the HPA, the Human Protein Atlas. We have Illuminator and Dichroic. So in more normal terms, they are known as Michaela and Devin. And co-hosting with me today is ever-present Ash Dorothy. Welcome, and I hope we have a nice show.
I'm not omnipresent yet. I'm working on it, though.
So let's just jump straight into what we had planned for questions. You guys just came back from FanFest, and there was a lot of interesting things that you've been doing, like the competition, and you were giving out swag prizes and all these things. Your experience with the interest from the Eve community, could you talk a little bit about that? I direct the question to Devin first.
Yeah, sure. Well, the interest from the community has been awesome. You know, as we've said over and over, it's just been overwhelming. I think that Michaela and I have both probably spent more time than we should have uh, responding to posts and interacting, but we love it. We love talking about our science, and the fan fest itself was super exciting and super fun. Just to have Hilmar there supporting the tournament, and you know, having a live final science off was so awesome.
Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people out there that's been having fun with Project Discovery was very jelly at the whole prize thing and the lab coat, and it's a personal friend of mine that actually ended up winning it. So personally, I am very jelly, and I just like to ask if when you were then socializing with everyone, did you get any extremely high-level geeky stuff going on? Did they keep asking you deep scientific questions, or did they kind of keep to the Eve stuff?
We had some people who were hanging out asking us a lot of scientific questions, everything from stuff about biology to stuff about astrophysics and hardcore math, and yeah, any kind of theory that you want to talk about. I think we're, you know, a bunch of nerds, so we're pretty much game to nerd out about science in general also.
So Eve has really been the perfect platform for you community-wise.
Yeah, it really has been. It's it's great when like one bunch of nerds meets another bunch of nerds, and like if we find a common ground in our nerddom.
So actually, I wanted to ask a little bit about the competition that you did at FanFest, because from my understanding, it was kind of impromptu, wasn't it? So like, what was the background behind it? How did it go? And who won? For those of us who weren't paying close attention to that.
Yeah, so it was, well, we had some server issues, which is why it ended up being a little bit impromptu, but we got them all working, and it was basically a head-to-head where you had 3 minutes to answer as many project discovery tasks as you could, and everyone that you got right, you got a little extra time, and everyone you got wrong, you lost some time. So you could extend yourself, and there was different levels also, so every time you passed a level, you got a large chunk of time also. But you got less and less time for passing things, and so eventually you ran out of time and died. But Michaela, I think, was our high scorer. She wound up going till 96% accuracy, and I don't know how many minutes it was, probably 10 or 15 minutes.
I was so stressed out though.
In extension to the comment you made about how you guys have actually been overworking a little bit, I know that Michaela has been extremely ever-present in the first few weeks, and I know that she's been integrating a lot with the community. Could you talk a little bit about your experience from a more personal and private relationship perspective, Michaela?
I think it's true what Devin said before. When, you know, two types of nerds meet each other, it can really hit off. And I think the Eve community has been like really awesome. All the people have been so friendly and so helpful, and both with project discovery related things and also just like bringing us into Eve and answering all kind of like stupid rookie questions and just helping out. So just hanging out on Reddit or in the chat channel or whatever is just so much fun all the time. It's like having sort of an extended family.
That's actually exactly the term that Hilma likes to use. But I would like to ask if because did you get overwhelmed a little bit, because it seems as if you guys have been picking up skill sets that might be normal for Eve players, but you guys looked like you were just, well, very new to it and just picking up all the social media things and getting on all the platforms, and now you did your first class on Twitch stream, which was awesome, and I've just been very inspired by seeing you guys coming in and just basically hot dropping the Eve community.
I think some of us were on the social media channels before privately, but not. We didn't expect this sort of response from the Eve players, and we weren't really planning for it. So we had to like, okay, let's get a Twitter account, let's get a Reddit or a subreddit, and let's get this and that. So it's been really a steep learning curve.
To be fair, I warned Professor Lundberg at Vegas that this could happen.
Okay. Yeah, but
Yeah,
still,
I mean, I
so...
think we had a lot of warnings, but you know, every time you heard the warnings, you're like, yeah, sure. I'm sure it will be, whatever. It'll be fine. And yeah.
Did any of you guys end up actually doing other things than project discovery? Did you start actually paying attention and playing some actual Eve? Because I know that Michaela has been asking a few questions that was quite Eve related. And what about you, Devin? Did you actually undock and shoot at stuff?
I have the claim to fame in the lab that I've killed 3 NPCs. I'm the only one that's killed something, so I feel really proud of that.
I'm so jealous.
No one else has figured out how to put guns on their ship and shoot at stuff. I actually shot HPA Darkfield first because I was practicing and she was there. So yeah, apparently you're not supposed to do that to people in your own fleet, but...
Oh, AWOXing is a thing. You're doing great, Devin. That sounds perfect in the Eve community. Everyone will be applauding.
All right, good.
Not supposed to and not allowed to are 2 totally different things in Eve.
Yeah, I think it popped up with a message like, hey, don't shoot your own fleet mates. That's really rude.
So from the science perspective, to get a little bit onto the more serious issues, one of the things that I personally have been wondering a lot and might have had a little bit of trouble finding is, this is a really big project that you guys are doing, and I'm looking forward to hearing more details in December when you guys are basically saying that it's going to be done, at least the first part. But I'm very curious about the real life applications. How is this actually going to benefit science, and who is going to be using it? Michaela, if you would mind taking that one.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about the project discovery part or the HPA part or both? Or
well, most likely the HPA part, because that's really what we're feeding into, right? The project discovery I would leave for a little bit later.
Yeah. I would say there are sort of 2 parts for the HPA that we are, we should say, giving to the society or giving to the research community. Partly we're doing this as sort of basic research. We're enabling this map of the human proteome that other researchers can use for their research, and just understanding sort of basic cell biology. How does things work? So what are proteins doing in the body? And then the second part would be that the researchers get to use this data and actually use it for their own research, both to further understand the body, but also to find potential biomarkers that could be used for drugs in the future, hopefully.
Especially interesting to me is that following this, and just in the wake of now we have proper DNA libraries that have gotten really cheap. So the Human Genome Project was way earlier in finishing than people expected. So we have this extremely effective technology to map genes in all species now, right? So that is accelerating, and your project is then putting those things into their respective places. And then we have things like the CRISPR project with the gene therapy things. So it seems as if these things are culminating into some huge synergetic, I don't know, quantum leap in bioscience. And I just feel that it's kind of overwhelming to us as players that we are actually having some little part in that big step. So what is the long-term vision of this, Devin? Can we expect something almost sci-fi like within the next 5-10 years?
Well, I don't know about 5 to 10 years, just because getting things into a clinic takes a long time. You have a lot of sort of hurdles to jump through, but I definitely think that we are heading towards a more holistic view of biology in general, especially with the help of computational AI, which is sort of what I'm really into. But yeah, the data resource in the atlas, which deals with proteins and where they are and how they're expressed in different situations like cancers, is mentioned in more than 4 publications every single day throughout the world. And I set up Google Scholar alerts that you can follow if you want for the HPA, and it'll tell you whenever someone cites us. But it's yeah, it's a lot of interesting articles and a lot of things happening. So it's an exciting time to be alive for sure.
So you just touched on something that I really want to kind of touch on again, which is that this is not just about processing protein in cells. There's this whole other component where you're working on AI to be able to do these things too. Traditionally, these kinds of things have been something that is the NP kind of puzzle, right? Like something that a human can do, but computers cannot. But there's the additional challenge of teaching computers how to do this kind of thing better, which is another focus of this project, right?
Yeah, so you know, the ultimate goal is to have a computer-assisted holistic understanding of biology. And one small piece of that is to be able to, you know, deal with all this data automatically. The big challenge here is, I think back in the late 80s, early 90s, they developed several systems that can automatically identify where a protein is in your cell, similar to what gamers are doing in Project Discovery. But it only works really well if you know that you have exactly one pattern and you know how many patterns you have to begin with. And in Project Discovery, as the gamers know, you often have multiple patterns, there are different brightnesses, the cells look different from different cell types. So all of those things add a huge layer, and many layers actually, of complexity that, with these advents of more advanced machine learning techniques in the last 5 years, is only just beginning to be tackled by the artificial intelligence and machine learning community. So we're really excited. We have, I have a student, a great student, Casper, who's working on developing some of those systems with me, and I just want to give him a shout out because he's also doing great work in this.
I'd like you to maybe expand a little bit upon the whole thing of the difference between AI and machine learning, and what is it that humans tend to be able to do so much better, and is there I don't know, a quantum leap in that technology where we can expect AI to be able to actually start doing some of the things that you and I take for granted?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so humans are really good at visual pattern recognition. That's one thing. Our eyes are really incredibly advanced processors of visual information. But computers are getting really, really good. If you've seen some of the Google AIs from coming out of TensorFlow, their deep neural network systems, they're able to take a picture and say, like, oh, it's a picture of a little girl sleeping with a teddy bear and a pink blanket or something like that. So it's, and they can generate exactly that text. So they're getting from images to direct human interactions. Another great tool that's doing something similar is IBM Watson. They've obviously made big headlines in the past with their data, with their speech and text processing, but they've also added some of these deep neural network components to try and learn particularly image features and voice features.
Yeah, I saw that they just upgraded one of the AI agent things where now it's actually capable of separating conjunct commands in language. So you can actually ask more things in one sentence, where before you had to actually do that one step at a time. If you started asking more things in the same sentence, it would just go crazy and say that it didn't understand you. But that brings on the whole thing of, well, you said the human eye. Maybe we should correct it so we don't get flooded by all the geeks out there. The human eye is really shit, right? It's a really, really bad organ if you start looking at it optically. But the visual cortex is able to take really bad things and do magical things at a speed that is perplexing, right? So how can we? I remember the quantum leap in bipedal motion when, I don't know, someone in a lab at MIT figured out that maybe we should stop trying to force it to walk and just tell it to not fall. That quantum leap just made it perfectly easy to program them to actually start walking in something that resembles human walk, because we are basically just controlling our falling every single day. Could we expect something similar in visual analysis and crunching the visual data? Is there something we've missed that might be just around the corner, so suddenly it's actually going to end up being better at seeing things than humans?
I mean, I wish I could tell you, yeah, there's definitely something we've missed, because if I knew that, then I would have a very nice job. Let's put it that way.
I'd be very rich. But if that comes along, right, I think it's more the consequences that I would like your comments on. What would that mean to the data sets and the speeds of analysis? Because right now we're doing all the crowdsourcing, right, and all us geeks are doing that work. But we burn out, and as I think most will agree, when you've been doing project discovery for more than 2 hours, you start getting a little bit tired. But a computer would not, so it would be a massive leap, right?
Yeah, you'd think, but you have to also remember that these things do take time on the computer still too. And one of the things is that right now scientists are generating data way faster than we can analyze it, even with a computer system. So, I mean, I think that having an automated system is really important, especially for getting through the data. But I also think that designing experiments well and designing systems that can quickly hone in on what the salient information is in a data source, or systems that actually design experiments is going to be hugely important as we move forward with this explosion of data.
Yeah, the volume of data is growing massively in almost every field, and now with, I know that it might not seem as if it's directly connected, but things like human interfaces and the things that are happening in virtual reality, of course right now we're just playing with it. That's always the thing with new technology. It gets used for what? Entertainment and porn, and then it grows up, right?
And killing people. And
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot.
You can kill people with it, then it's pretty good.
Killing people, very important. But what I would like to maybe direct to Michaela, the whole thing of the next step in human to computer interface, do you think we can expect something like that to actually creep into your field? I know that there's already things like anatomy classes and stuff, so I'm just waiting. When can we expect Michaela to do a presentation of the human cell biology in virtual reality?
Oh my god, I have absolutely no idea. Actually, Devin, do you have any input on that?
I think it would be really cool. So we're making a virtual cell. It would be really cool if we could figure out a way to load that into a VR system so that people could interact and explore it. That would be awesome. I mean, it's not that unreasonable to think.
No,
of.
because we already have something very much like that with normal gross anatomy, right? So why not move it into histology as well? I would love to see these things, and maybe I don't really understand the details about the tools that you guys are using, but it seems as if they should be perfectly capable of creating sections and create 3D models, right?
Yeah, we have 3D models of some of the components of the cell. One of the challenges to date has been getting all of those components into a single cell, because with the fluorophores, you can only label a small number of organelles at a time, or proteins. So you can't look at all of them together at once. Even just the number of organelles, let alone the proteins, where they are in the organelle, you don't have the resolution for that anyway. So yeah, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. There are some really cool technologies being developed for that, and it's coming, but it's maybe still a year or two off.
Now,
That actually kind of leads
Go
into
ahead.
a question that I have, which is how, like, realistically valuable is the work that we're doing? Like, because I know that there's a lot of criticism because everything's a cytoplasm, or, like, oh, well, people are making mistakes, or, there's all different kinds of reasons that people come up with why project discovery, quote unquote, doesn't work. But does it work? How well does it do? And how much more valuable is the information once it's been processed by project discovery for you? Can you kind of paint a picture of what it becomes for you?
Yeah, it's super valuable. I mean, I think that the labels that the gamers are providing us are more accurate on a per image basis, because we've been annotating per experiment. Because what we were really interested before in was, where is this protein in cells, right? And now it's a slightly different question that we're asking the gamers. We're saying, where is this protein in this image of cells? And because of that, the reason that question is important is because in order to train an artificial intelligence system, we have to actually understand what the exact image is showing us, not just a holistic view. The second part that's really useful to us is the added value annotations that you all are giving us. So you're going through our data set and adding, I think, Michaela can correct me if I'm wrong, like 7 new locations or something like that. So it's almost another 50% more than what we've annotated in the past. So that's a huge value addition that we're getting. And I know people have criticized over annotation of cytoplasm or under annotation of whatever, but we're working really hard to tune our cutoff algorithms so that we actually can optimize that on the back end after we've collected the data.
Additionally, sorry.
Okay, I also want to add that even if we don't get everything to work as we planned it, I think the details, or the level of detail that we do get out, is going to be extremely valuable from a biology point of view. Just knowing that something that we call nucleoli is actually nucleolar fibrillar center for 200 proteins will be super useful for the researchers that are really studying those proteins. So I think just getting 200 proteins with nucleolar fibrillar center would make it worth it.
As your technology starts improving and getting new features and things like that, because right now you're doing like one protein at a time, right? And it's very likely that you will in the near future be able to do things like combinations and actually more complicated imagery, right? And do it faster and all these things. Moore's law is a thing. What I'm kind of leading into is, can we then expect you guys to want to make projects like Project Discovery or improve Project Discovery to have more levels of detail and more complicated interactions from the users? Because right now it's just a little bit multiple choice and click fest. Could we see some more detailed meta data levels?
Go ahead, Michaela.
Okay. When we started Project Discovery, we decided to go with arrow images because they were the easiest ones to annotate. So this was sort of like just a proof of principle. Does this work? Can we get the players to annotate them? Can I do it good enough? And then if it's working, then we could move on to subsets of data or more difficult images. Or, I mean, we have like 12 million images from tissues and cancer tissues in the Cell Atlas. that we would like to have the players to look at. But
Is it possible that well, because maybe it would be difficult to introduce and expand project discovery directly with that type of data, but have you considered actually moving that part out and just using the project discovery experience and all that knowledge to then create a out of game crowdsourced project? Michaela.
I think the good part about Project Discovery is that it's actually in game in Eve, so we do get this continuous player response. I mean, if we would have a standalone app or just something that's completely disconnected from Eve, the problem would be to have people to continue to play it and not get bored after 2 weeks, 2 months, or whatever. I mean, we're 2 months in and people are still like giving a lot of classifications every day. So I think it's.
Well, I think that like what he might be suggesting is, for instance, Eve Online just announced that they're going to have their own official Eve app. Would it be possible for there to be an external app that ties into your guys' network, but through Eve, if that makes sense?
I asked Andy for that, but we were on the pub crawl, so I don't know if she took me very seriously.
So it sounds like something that everybody wants, but we'll just see whether or not it happens to come together.
Yeah, we can't really comment on what CCP's plans are. You know, they're their own company, but it would be awesome, I think.
What about things like open source versions of some of these things? Are you interested in moving in that direction with some of this as well? So it becomes a little bit easier for people to actually help with creating the things that could do these things. Because I know that there's a lot of third-party developers in Eve, and I'm pretty sure that many of them would find it very interesting to be part of something like HPA and well, even maybe help create non-profit versions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've had a couple of gamers actually make little apps to like view images and change color channels and stuff like that. They're over on the Project Discovery subreddit, and they're really cool. I don't know what I wouldn't think that we are actually planning on doing something like that, just again because we're not a gaming company, we're not we're a biology research laboratory. So, you know, our primary interest is getting the data, getting it analyzed, and yeah, if people want to develop stuff, our data is all open source. So of course people can get our data anytime.
Well, it's back to the thing that I'm pretty sure that Michaela has discovered, that when you guys stuck your nose out, quite a lot of people started paying attention, and it's a lot easier to get people interested in these things when there is a venue of engagement, right? So I don't know how much the Reddit does, but just going out there and getting all this attention, you could use that attention very positively. You are basically creating a lot of social capital, and then it's just whether or not you want to, well, cash in on it.
Yeah, it was actually funny, you know, you mentioned that we're creating a lot of attention with this project, and I think that's one of the great things about it is that people are interested about the science, and we were on this retreat recently where we were sort of doing an annual review of the project, and we were looking at visits to the pages over time. And the head of the HPA said, like, oh, what's this weird bump where we see like a 10-15% increase in visits per day? And everyone in our group was like, it's Project Discovery. So you guys got a big shout out. Everyone was really impressed that we see a sustained boost in the number of visits per day to the page just from Project Discovery, and you know, people going to different parts of the atlas than previously that were being used. So the dictionaries are really big. The learning tools have come to the forefront, and of course the blog also. So I think it's been really great for us from an outreach perspective also, and I really enjoy you know, spreading the word about biology too.
Because
One of the
usually, go ahead, Ash.
I was just going to say that one of the interesting things that I have found about Project Discovery in Eve is just how many people in Eve don't know about it. Like, it's pretty new, and a lot of people kind of haven't discovered it yet, for, you know, no pun intended. And so I think that it's possible that, like, that helps create this slow, like, it's not this gigantic burst of people, but at the same time, every day there's more people discovering it for the first time. And so that may help out with any sort of burnout problems that a lot of times you would see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have the numbers on new users per day. But I think it's probably still pretty many.
Also, because it's of course a benefit to CCP that they get people to log in and use these things. But back to the whole thing with the app and you talking to Andy about it. If these things are more readily available, and it's funny because players keep mentioning the Android app, right? And it's something that should have been happening a long time ago with crowdsourced science, right, or things like this. There's been other projects that resemble this, but this is something about casual time, right, for users. You also see that in the way that players use it in Eve. So how have you guys any thoughts on how to approach all this extra ad hoc time? Is that something you've seen in your metrics? I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, again, I don't know that we're necessarily in the business of doing that. It's probably more a question for Attila over at
MMOS. Yeah, sorry.
Online Science. But yeah, there are some scientific games that are out on platforms like mobile platforms. I tweeted one out a little while ago that was dealing with RNA folding, which was really nice. They have a nice little interface where you can sort of try and learn and predict RNA structures, and the goal being to design different molecules and different RNAs.
And now I've been following the VR technology quite a lot lately. Most likely because of Valkyrie, of course, but some of the things that I've been noticing is that it seems to be finally here, and with things like folding and 3D structures and that kind of thing, that must be something that will boost the understanding of especially biological systems, right? Because it is so sensitive to the, what is it, quaternary structures, right? So is this something that will be in the next project of HPA's work, the whole next dimension? Because a lot of the stuff that you have is still classic 2D samplings, right? So will there be something like that in the future? Michaela, do you have any thoughts on the three-dimensional version of samples, right? How will that look in new biology?
I'm trying very hard to visualize it, so Devin, if you have any input, feel free to interrupt me. What I'm thinking is that we are looking in the human body, both in tissues and cells, rather than at the protein structure. We are looking at where the protein is localizing, trying to connect that with a function. So rather than maybe then looking at protein structure, which is extremely tedious and extremely time-consuming and very different from what we're doing, I guess the next step for us would be to look at protein interactions to see what interactions partner they may have. For example, if two proteins are in the mitochondria, can we sort of, what is the probability of them interacting? So try to get a more detailed level of what we're doing at the moment, and possibly also including other, what you call DNA data or RNA data, which we're already starting to do, but actually to bring that more into what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think the more likely dimension that we'll add before 3 dimensions is probably a temporal dimension, honestly. Because, 3D imaging, it exists, it's out there. The microscopes we use are even capable of it. it's time consuming. It's hard on the cells, so you can't really do a long time series, or it's harder to do a long time series and have the cells stay happy and healthy. And the question that you have to ask in the end of the day is, what do you gain from it? You know, if what you're asking is, where are the proteins localized? Can you get that from a 2D image, or do you need a third dimension? I think at the HPA, we've found that we can mostly tell where a protein is from a 2D slice through the cell. That's not to say 3D imaging doesn't have a hugely important place in the field of proteomics and understanding proteins. But I think right now we're more interested in, like Michaela said, how proteins are interacting. And so maybe the temporal information of how proteins are changing and regulating each other is of more interest to us.
Now, the one last thing for Michaela that ties back to the class that you had, because I had shelved most of my biology knowledge for quite a while and haven't actually looked into it for some years. But this whole thing has just spiked my interest so much, and I catch myself digging into reading papers about things and just getting way back into the geekiness of it. And when you started doing your classes, I'm just sitting there waiting. What's the next thing that you're going to do? I know it's time consuming, and of course that's not your primary thing, but can we expect some more of that? And do you think it's worth that investment of time to make the players better or the users better at classifying, so you actually get even better data? I mean, does it make sense, and what can we expect to see from that front, Michaela?
I would love to do more classes, and I've been planning to do it, and also probably sort of do the same class again, the basic one, but also have follow-up classes and more advanced classes. But it really depends on what people want, and also what sort of, I need to get some input from the players, what you want to have classes on and what sort of questions we should bring up. But I'm totally open to do that often. I think it was a lot of fun.
So would you say that your classes are more for a complete novice, or would you say that your classes would also benefit somebody who's tried out Project Discovery and been frustrated by not being able to be successful at it?
Yeah, absolutely, both groups, and also the ones that are 99% accuracy, but still want to talk about cell biology or talk about those really difficult samples where is it a nucleus or is it a nucleoplasm or is it speckles, or those small things that can change what you actually annotate.
Now, I was quite impressed with how much the players tried to pick up that workload really and create tutorials and explanations and trying to help people distinguish some of the harder things. I'm not sure if it was actually Yadarian, but someone did a very detailed explanation of the difference between nucleus and nucleoli, and how to distinguish the two from each other. And we still see a lot of overlap where people are uncertain. And I know that Yadarian is in the audio channel at the moment, ready to ask some of the questions outside of the show. So welcome to Yadarian, and would you like to make a comment on that?
Hello everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Caleb. As for the video, I didn't do the one between nucleus to nucleoplasm, but I did a very detailed one between centrosomes and MTOC, or microtubule organizing centers, mostly because of my observation that it was often overlooked, because sometimes MTOC or centrosome is in the middle of something else, and it can be very hard to observe. And I picked up some small things and tried to make a sort of class like Michaela did, just to give an insight on how you would go about it. But the way I approached it was maybe a bit too high level already. It was just a player's perspective, and Michaela did an excellent job also explaining the why and how on it all, while I was just giving an overview of how I would approach the subject as a player.
How do you, your comments on the quality of the work that players have been doing on that level, Michaela? What's your thoughts on that? Are we too highbrow or too lowbrow? What's the end judgment?
Maybe I should put that question to Devin because he's the statistics guy.
Are we too highbrow or lowbrow? I don't think that that's really answerable. I think the players have some tendencies, but in general, they do a really good job. I really, and of course, it helps with these players who step up and make these extra videos and put time into the community, in-game chat channels, and I think we are seeing the data get better, especially since the change from community consensus to control sample scoring. I know the control samples at times can have little errors in them, but we have updated some of them, and we're updating more based on gamer input also. So that's been really helpful, and I really enjoy that it's kind of as Michaela said, an extended family or a community around this project, and we're not just here on our own floating around in space, no pun intended.
That actually brings up another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that the original set started with a system in which consensus controlled people's accuracy rating. And then you quickly determined that EVE Online players like to game systems, and so that was bad. And switched to a more controlled system where basically people are periodically tested against what are supposedly known things. Also, a little while ago, you guys reported that basically we had already gone through all of your guys' samples, and you'd basically instigated a task to basically redo all the samples again a second time, just for secondary validity. Now, that second time, people understand Project Discovery a little bit more. There's better tutorials. There's a better accuracy system. Do you see a difference in the results? Do you see a forward progress, so to speak, more accurate results from the reclassification of the items, or is it basically the same?
Yeah, we do see a better result since switching the system and as time goes on. So I think Emma presented a graph that I made at the FanFest in which player accuracy over time had sort of started at some level and then dipped as people figured out how to game the consensus system, and then we did away with that and it started raising. And so I haven't looked at it in the last week or two since FanFest really, but we do see that it's going up, and I hope that it continues to go up. So,
well, my question is, what change has that had in the kind of information? Because we're going through the same exact samples a second time. So do you see different answers with a quote unquote more accurate system?
Yeah, I haven't done too much analysis of that quite yet. The last time I got the data dump, you had only gone through the second round a little bit, and there was reasonably high agreement between first round and second round. But one of the things that it allows us to do is just double check things. If you have so I have a confidence ranking system. And so if you have a high confidence on an image, meaning that you have a lot of on-target votes and basically no off-target votes the first time around, and then you get a different answer the second time around, that's obviously super interesting. So I'm going to look into that some more, but things that are lower confidence, sort of more near this threshold, I wouldn't be surprised if they change based on these retraining people and understanding better what is an MTOC, what's a centrosome, this kind of small details that even I miss a lot of times. Michaela maybe not so much. She's a lot better than me at it.
I opened up the floor for Q&A. Maybe some of the questions that are not that science-based or technology-based. So if anyone has any questions, please start asking in chat. And until then, I think Yadarian might have a question or two.
Yeah, definitely. If I have gone FanFest, I would have asked you this in person. But I was wondering how much of your day job is spent on project discovery and everything that revolves around that.
Depending on how you see it, either too much or too little. Um, I would like to spend even more time on it because it's so much fun. But I would say a few hours per week, maybe in total, and that includes hanging out in the chat, answering things on Reddit, or whatever.
And how about you, Dev?
Yeah, I think
Devin is not around.
I'm here.
We lost him. You're here.
Oh, can
I
you
see you.
can you just try and rejoin the video?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me try calling you guys back.
There we go. Thanks.
There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I spend probably a little bit more than that on a weekly basis, just because I'm also doing the data crunching, data analysis, building the statistics and the graphs and everything. So it varies a lot week to week. Also, it varies a lot. Some weeks it's pretty much full time, and some weeks it's I have a different deadline, so I'm gonna not work on project discovery. So, but I do the blog, the image of the week blog every week. That's not directly project discovery related every week, but players have been contributing to that a lot, which we appreciate. And so that's at least a couple hours a week.
I've been really happy with the blog because I don't understand about 60-70% of it. So it really triggers me to look up some of the stuff you're talking about and sometimes ask a follow-up question, which is very nice for the understanding of the project. Another thing that I was wondering is somewhat earlier in the project, I believe it was just out on TQ, there was talks about giving us leaderboards. Well, I don't know if that's a thing for you guys at the HPA or for CCP, but there was talk about handing out some real life swag to the higher up players. So could you comment on if that's still a thing and if there's any sign of leaderboards going up for project discovery?
We can't really comment on leaderboards. That's not our place. I know that they've discussed it at least, and I think someone's working on it. But again, can't promise anything on the CCP side of things. But in terms of real life swag, yes, we have some, and yes, it's coming to the top players and top contributors. So keep up the good work, and maybe you'll find a package in your mailbox someday.
Awesome. And one thing, and that's my last question for now, Caleb, is well, concerning a bit of the scientific thing again. But has any part of the project discovery data already been used by science outside the HPA office, or when is it projected to be used?
It has not been used outside of HPA yet because it's not public yet. So we will use it. We have a big database release in the 5th of December, I think, this year. And then the project discovery data will be included. So after that, I would say it will be used.
Could you answer the question from
that?
chat, Michaela, the actual reception from the community? Because that ties straight into that, right? What the preliminary interest, how's it been received? Do you have more interest now than you had like 6 months ago from outside scientists?
From scientists outside HPA, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because
yeah.
I have a personal friend that's also a professional biologist, and he was kind of putting it down a little bit initially, but since he's seen all these things grow and the success rate, he's been changing his mind a little bit, and I'm just wondering if that's a general thing that you are getting in the science community.
I don't know much, but I would say that we are getting a lot of attention from big magazines in science, such as Nature Biotech, which is pretty amazing that they're writing about project discovery and even HPA. So just getting that sort of attention is amazing. But I don't have any specifics on it. Devin, do you know anything more?
No, I can't really comment on that, but I can say personally, I wasn't as sure that this would work when we started it. I don't think anyone involved in the project was sure if it would work, since it's the first of its kind. But yeah, now that it's been going for a while, I think everyone realizes, like, wow, the gamers are definitely contributing, and we're definitely getting useful data out of this. So it's really exciting. Even within the project, I think we weren't nearly as positive on it at the beginning as we are now.
And then, of course, we got the ugly comment on paywalls, because you guys linked some nice things that I think a lot of us would have liked to read. Is that something that can be resolved somehow, or do a light recap or something on the blog? Because it's a really frustrating thing that you want to read something and then you stumble on those paywalls.
I didn't realize there was a paywall until people notified us on it, and I don't know what we're allowed to do with it, actually.
It just seems a little bit stupid, right? Doing something that's related to crowd science behind a paywall. That's like oxymoronic,
Well,
really.
they got to get money too. I mean,
Yeah, that's fine, but the
free.
whole point of open sourcing and crowdsourcing is that you should have access. The money should then follow after, right?
Yeah, I mean, these journals you can't really do too much about. I briefly contemplated taking some of the paywalled papers that I was linking and putting them on Drive, but then I thought that I could probably get in a lot of trouble from their copyright office for doing that. So yeah, I didn't do that, but I will try to.
Oh, but maybe a comment and a small review thing about what's actually in it, so maybe people that could actually get access through some means would then go and do it, if there's some sort of short synopsis of it.
Yeah, I will try and pick articles going forward that are not behind the paywall. Unfortunately, some of the bigger journals have paywalls. So, like Nature, I think I linked theirs before, and they have a paywall, and so it's sometimes unavoidable. But yeah, I think let the citizens science. Come on, get rid of the paywalls.
I think that's a perfect way to close down, because I know that there's a lot of our viewers out there that might be waiting to go and watch Eurovision.
Go Sweden!
So I'd like to say thanks for coming and doing this, Devin and Michaela, and thanks for helping host this, Ash, and also a big thanks to Yadarian for showing up, and he's an avid fan of your guys. So thanks for this.
Thank you guys very much. It was fun.
It was awesome.
Thanks for putting it all together, Caleb.
Awesome.
All right, go Sweden. Let's Eurovision this.
Go Netherlands.